That's the appraisal. And therefore, I paid no.
Yes, I think we'll get started. Already.
You could very easily. Because I do stuff that couldn't trust. It was for divorce.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the January 17th, 2024 meeting of the City of Charleston Planning Commission. My name is Charlie Carish. I'm joined here by members, Mr. Jimmy Bailey, Mark Jackson, Ms. Donna Jacobs, Ms. McKenna Joyce. I expect Vice Chairman Harry Lassane to be here in a few minutes. These folks are volunteers appointed by Charleston City Council. I know you join me in thanking them for their service to the community and to the city of Charleston. They're good work. The way the meeting will run tonight is I'll leave an item from the agenda to the record, and we'll hear from staff, and we'll hear from the applicant, and we'll hear from anybody that may be in favor of an application, and we'll hear anybody that has opposition or concerns about the application. And we'll give the applicant a chance to answer any questions that were brought up in opposition or anything at final remarks. Then we'll close out the public hearing. And then commission members will discuss, make motions, and vote on certain items. I'd ask if you have a cell phone, please turn on silent, turn it off. If you get up to speak tonight, I ask you to come to the podium. Tell us who you are, if you represent someone, and your address if you would. Mr. Morgan, would you please introduce any staff to be presenting tonight? And I see Mr. Batchelder here, which is always nice to see. Anybody to present tonight, and any changes to the agenda?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Christopher Morgan, planning manager here at the city of Charleston. Lee Batchelder, our zoning administrator, is here tonight. Philip Overcash is here. Omar Mohammed, who's the planner to the planning commission, is here. Philip Clapper, our clerk, is here. And Molly Connor, our annexation planner, is as well. And we do have a number of deferrals. They're printed on the agendas that are available here, but I'll kind of go through those just in case some folks have missed them. The residential subdivision at 2682 Highway 41 and Duxbury Farm Road has been deferred. Zonings at 616 and 622 Wapu Road have been deferred. 1136 Bees Ferry Road. Zoning has been deferred. 1154 Bees Ferry Road has been deferred. And 1916 Second Drive in West Ashley has been deferred as well.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other staff, anybody you want to introduce? Okay.
But Mr. Chairman, could we, I'd like to request if we could see if anyone is here for the, I think just one zoning.
Yep, I was going to ask that, so thank you. Is anybody here for zoning? I guess it would be item number
Two of them. Maybe.
Two of them.
4, 2413, 2417.
or number 6.
And number 6.
No, if not. We'll move on. Thank you. First item on the agenda is minutes. Approval of October 18th, 2023 minutes. I always pick on Ms. Jacobs because she's the best proofreader we got.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did read the minutes. I didn't see any obvious corrections. I did, however, want to ask staff because I noticed in those minutes, we talked about Commissioner Bailey's request to do partial meetings with Zoom or Zoom meetings, and there were some issues that were brought up and they were recorded in those minutes. However, the very first meeting of the DRB this year has been moved to Zoom. So I was wondering if these situations have been corrected in our favor to where we could also look at potential Zoom meetings.
And I did not even know that DRB meeting had been moved to Zoom. So
I noticed it because I
yeah.
keep up with the DRB for other reasons, and I noticed it was a purely Zoom meeting. So I thought whatever issues had been brought up and maybe had been resolved, so they could also be under our consideration when we might need to be.
Very well, maybe that was news to me that I just learned about this afternoon. So we will check in with our legal.
Well, I'm sure Mr. Bailey, because he's been bringing that up regularly with.
That's Jacobs. Would you like to make a
I
motion?
make a motion for approval with that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Seconded by Mr. Bailey. So motion to approve the minutes of October 18th by Ms. Jacobs, second by Mr. Bailey. Any other questions? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 favor, none opposed. Just for the record, we're also joined by Ms. Harrison, Eric Harrison, and by Vice Chairman Harry Lassine. So that's all coming. First item on this next item on the agenda is rezonings. Number 162 Ashley Avenue, Peninsula, TMS number 4601 504061, approximately 0.25 acres. Request rezoning from limited business LB to mixed use workforce housing MU2 WH. Mr. Morgan.
Thank you. So this property is in the area that most people refer to as like the medical district, the hospital district. It's on Ashley Avenue. It's actually a privately owned piece of property. Here you see it on the screen in front of you. It's just south of Dowling Street, eastern side of Ashley Avenue, about 700-800 feet north of Calhoun Street. Backs up to a MUSC parking deck here and some other privately held parcels in this location here. And it's right near the horseshoe for MUSC, which is right in here. So that gives you a good sense of what this is. There is a request here to rezone from the limited business category to the mixed use workforce housing MU2 WH for the property. And we'll kind of go through some background. This is in our comprehensive plan as campus. And that means it's an area that is designed to protect those kind of campus uses that happen here, the medical campuses, the MUSC educational campus that's part of the medical campus, all those types of uses. And we've got a unique kind of situation here in that our land use category is designed to protect this area, but we actually have one of the key entities of the medical district here in support of this request tonight. So we'll get into that more in a minute, but it's part of the reason that it's a kind of complicated case for us because you know, we have this campus district that on the surface we would basically be saying that we wouldn't see other zonings that are not done for the medical uses and the perpetuation or the perpetual uses of the medical college and the hospitals in this location. But this instance involves a developer who wants to put in housing that would be used by medical district workers, students. And what you're going to hear tonight from MUSC is that they are very interested in seeing such housing in this area because there's a shortage of it. From a staff standpoint, and I will get into these comparisons here, limited business, of course, allows a range of mix of uses. It allows a much lower level of density. It's 19.6 units an acre. MU2 workforce housing, unlimited density. It does allow the commercial uses of LB as well as the commercial uses of GB, but it has an unlimited density that's only constrained by height. And this is a site that has a good bit of height around it. This is an aerial view of the property. Again, the MUSC horseshoe here, some older privately held buildings here, and then the MUSC parking deck here. And you see here how the property, this is the street view of the property, is surrounded by basically a 7-story parking deck. So the idea that more height here would be kind of sitting out alone is not correct. It's actually immediately adjacent to some other really tall buildings. Directly across the street is the Storm Eye Institute as well. And it has a good bit of height with it as well. Let's see. Yeah, Storm Eye Institute is the building directly across the street on Ashley Avenue here. So from a comprehensive planning standpoint, our staff is recommending disapproval because this would not be in keeping with the campus designation of a comprehensive plan. But we think there are a lot of extenuating circumstances here, the largest being the support from the entity that we're really trying to protect with this campus, MUSC, that make for a good reason for you all to listen to it and the arguments that they have in favor of this request. But we are recommending disapproval, and this slide should read, it's a request from the LB to the MU2 workforce housing. And we do recommend disapproval of the request, but we understand that there are the extenuating circumstances. And with that, I will let the applicants present their case. And we've got some slides here that they have provided, and they can go through those for you.
Great. Is the applicant, come on up, sir. Thank you.
I'm Richard Guy with LS3P, and we're at 205 and a half King. I'm here with Kira Brower also, and we have the development team and the owners of the property here as well. And just so you know, we've been working with the development team for quite some time about how to take a quirky little site that wasn't a part of a parking deck that maybe it should have been a part of many, many years ago when that development happened with Old Charleston High School. And so you've got this kind of leftover tiny little spot. You know, should it be parking, should it be office, should it be apartments? And as we develop these schemes, then we had COVID, then they got a real estate development person. It's been a long process, but student housing seemed to be kind of like a no-brainer. And so we stuck with that. And then we took this idea to the city, and we got a similar kind of response to Mr. Batchelder and Mr. Morgan gave us. And then we followed a process of talking to the Preservation Society, Historical Foundation. MUSC doesn't support many projects, but they agreed to come to this meeting tonight. And then we went to Radcliffe Borough because they're immediately adjacent. And this is the garage is a big scary building, and we could probably put a nice building in front of it that has life-breathing spaces on the ground floor and hope for some support. Councilman Gregory was there because he wanted to know what they thought. And, you know, the whole issue that they brought up during the meeting was about parking decals. You know, you have these people in these buildings, we're gonna do off-site parking for our residents. But what about a few other people? Where are they gonna park? They're gonna park in our neighborhood. So we went down a road of just trying to reassure everybody that those parking decals that TNT gives out are not available for certain parcels that have off-street parking provided. And we talked to Jeffrey Roberts, who's doing the deal nearby here. He has gone through this process and reassured it both from a property owner standpoint and from a TNT standpoint that we will not have students in the neighborhood. So I'm going to let Akira go through some of the slides, and then I'll just chime in a little bit after that.
So you can go to the second slide, just to show the broader context. So you can see it's situated within MUSC's campus, as Mr. Morgan has already kind of defined. A lot of the main buildings are highlighted on the left. So most of them are MUSC use, a lot for the university. The horseshoe is kind of like the center of the campus essentially. And then there's the parking garage that kind of wraps our site at 162. Directly to the north is a mixture of diverse residential buildings. Caviar and Bananas is on the corner, and there's some apartments that are kind of directly north of the site. You can go to the next slide. So the purpose of the MUWH zoning is to promote a mixture of housing opportunities within a single building, along with appropriate non-residential uses, and it defines it in urban areas of the city where on-street parking or other public parking is customary and can be reasonably accommodated. And so we feel strongly that this is an urban area of the city. It's surrounded by many other tall buildings on the site. We do understand the city's concerns having an MU zoning in this region, as there's not a lot of other MU zones in this area. The closest are kind of about a quarter of a mile to the north or the south. But those lots do have similar adjacencies, and we feel that something in this location would really benefit the university, because the current zoning does not allow affordable housing or a kind of density of units we built somewhere where it really is needed. You can go ahead to the next slide. This is just a diagram showing the closest grocery store is the Publix at West Edge, and kind of the proximity of 162 actually to that grocery and to the campus would be appealing for a student or a younger professional to perhaps walk or bike to most of their daily needs. I think that there's an appeal to maybe not own a car or to very rarely use a car in a housing development in this location. Go to the next slide. And here's an aerial view. It's looking kind of towards the southeast at the site. So you can see the actual parking garage wrapping around the site, and kind of the small home or building that is there now that is set significantly back from the street, not engaging with the street at all. It's kind of apparent as well, the height of the buildings. And if you go to the next slide, we provided kind of a section diagram showing the kind of variety of along that passageway. And this is really kind of like a missing piece to that. It's in a location that is kind of transitional between the north and the south, but it is squarely within the campus of MUSC. And I'll let Rich continue.
Yeah, the next slide. You can see here the colorings that we have showing just how much on the edge this particular site is, but it's actually within the campus. And those buildings, I mean, there are very few places in Charleston where you can go, where you can see building, and these tall urban things. And it's really remarkable. You just don't expect it, but it's what allows the medical university to be a living, breathing organism. It needs that density. It's the single largest public employer in the entire region. And, you know, they need people, not just hospital beds and, you know, places for people to go to work. They need places for people to live. They need places for people to eat. That's what makes a mixed use urban organism actually work. Having those mixed use uses in this project is cool. Nice. And so this is just, again, repeating the same thing. And let's face it, the garage, if it were built over, might have been more imposing to those houses. And when you think about an opportunity for a transitional building that's a little smaller, missing middle, small footprint, maybe has a character that's different than a big scary garage. I think this is a great opportunity to actually change the scale and the architectural or whatever for those to transition between the small houses and the garage. So we like that aspect. It's not really an architectural, it's more of an architectural, but I think we can't do that without MU. Next. And the ground floor. I drove up Ashley Avenue today. You know, when you go up that way, you see the bridge. Oh my gosh, bridge over there. How many times does that happen in our city? You have the little bump where you have to slow down for people to walk from the garage over. It's just a very interesting area, and it's, I would say, the parts to the south of the bridge are a little unholy, not very like conducive to walking around. If you were a sick person, it might actually make you go home. But to the north of that, we have an opportunity here to actually put a living, breathing, you know, coffee shop on the ground floor with people living above the store, and with all the activities going from the College of Health Professionals over to the Horseshoe and the academic buildings. It really seems like it suggests that it wants to be in every one of these alleys that are dark. They could be activated with windows and other kind of doors that make it feel like the Charleston alleys that we all love, instead of this kind of adjacency of two things that don't talk to one another. Next. And then this is a little diagram from the master plan showing the red dot, you know, back through here. I mean, this is a major thoroughfare across the campus, and we're right on it. You can see the Horseshoe, the College of Health Professionals, the Rutledge Avenue side. I couldn't find a better site for student housing for this use, and all these little spaces for walking could be continued. Next.
There he is. More.
So, you know, just so you all know, we did a quick study for these folks to see how many beds we could get in there. If we could get to 7 stories, that's about 90 beds. You know what 90 beds is in terms of houses? I mean, when I was a student, we would put 7 or 8 in a house. I think kids are a little bit fussier than that today. I know my kids are. So you figure 3, 5 to a house, that's somewhere between 13 and 30 houses that potentially could be emptied and put in here. And so I just think that that's how we have to think. This is where density makes sense, because we're trying to perpetuate better neighborhoods. Next, please. And so really, this is it. You know, I watch a lot of your presentations, And you all have a tough job to do, and I appreciate what you do. This project is supported by MUSC. It has an opportunity to free up the renters. This is a local team. They're gonna do what they say. They intend to hold the property. They're not gonna flip it to somebody. The workforce housing will be provided. There's no fee in lieu that's going to be exercised here. That's a big deal for all the council. We get that. And that could be maybe 7 to 9, depending on how many actual apartments. Imagine being a worker at the middle or bottom rung in the MUSC complex and being able to work and live right there, maybe not own a car. Would be great incentive for workers to come there. It's within the medical complex. Having affordable housing is always good. It's missing middle, has a small footprint. It would hide that garage. I mean, the garage emanates sound, it emanates light at night, and just having a building that could kind of complete that skyline, I think would be really cool. The street level activation would be outstanding. When I moved here, I didn't own a car. I lived on Queen Street, $300, walked to Harris Teeter. My Ellis Street feed was on East Bay Street. I lived here for 3 years without a car until one of my colleagues gave me the number a day, and I said, okay, I'll buy it. But it can be done if you so choose. And this is one of those places where that could happen. So we like your support, and we'll let everybody say their piece, and then we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good question, Ms. Jacobs, go ahead.
Well, I think Eric.
Ms. Harrison, either one.
So a couple of things I wanted to ask you about is that I know you're saying MU, you're doing a 36. Can you go back to the last line that talks about your bedroom count? So this is just a base, this chart is just a number of like that you think you do, because most people, I mean, most projects don't have 4-bedroom. The 4-bedroom apartments are mainly you see like in the dormitory style.
But it's also a less
Yeah.
expensive option.
Mhm.
And if you have a little kitchenette and maybe a private bathroom and a private bedroom, it would be, I know my kids moved off campus. I got a big raise when they did that. But the closer you are to campus, the more expensive it is. This is an option for maybe not to be as expensive by having a few. And again, this is conceptual in nature, just to be honest with you, because if we end up with living rooms, these guys have to buy 2 parking lots, not one.
Right.
And that's something they're prepared to do.
And then the next, I think you pulled out the slide that talks about the 0.9 miles from a grocery store. Can you go to that one?
Yes.
Yeah. The reason why I want to bring that one up is because I don't know if I heard you talk about the micro unit concept. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when
So
Mr.
you
Roberts.
probably want to talk about that a little bit more. You
Yeah.
can explain
Yeah.
micro units.
Yeah, so Mr. Roberts came before you and went to council to create a zoning type for teeny tiny units, less than X square feet,
About less than 400.
400. And if you do that, you only have to have 1 car for 3 units. And you have to go into the city, or you actually have a lease that says, I'm not allowed to have a car. He put that in the lease. And so that everybody knows that there's not gonna be a bunch of folks going downtown trying to counterfeit and trying to get decals. So Jeffrey explained the whole thing to me on a Saturday morning, and he was prepared to write a letter. I said, I think the concept of what you did is really huge. And here's another opportunity for us to do something similar. And I think that same kind of lease arrangement and conversation was something that we could learn from.
Ms. Jacobs,
Oh, Eric, I had my question about number of units. I couldn't
Okay.
see it on the slide. That's
and I
just.
think you said it earlier, the number of units that you anticipate or hope.
It's a conceptual
Yeah,
diagram.
yeah.
Right?
One thing though, is there any potential to go above 7 stories? What would be the restriction? Because the
with
rest of
this
the
zoning-
campus is like 10, 12.
With this zoning, they would be eligible to use the medical district heights, and in this location, it's an 85-foot height district.
Okay.
So whatever you can fit within 85 feet, because again, the medical district heights are a little bit different. Again, part of the reason we have the special protection for the campus area.
Any thoughts on that?
Some of the
Yeah.
stories are 12 in there. Some of the buildings are 12 in there. That's what I was asking. Okay.
Well, I agree, Mr. Morgan is correct. There's no way to get any more in there. We wanted like little teeny tiny floors. The city has prohibition against small floors.
Yeah.
And ground floor has to be a certain height. So we've drawn the section.
You're lucky to get that 7. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, any other questions for commission members? If not, thank you all both.
Thank you.
Does anyone like to speak in favor of the application? Come on up, tell us who you are, where you live, and thank you.
Good afternoon and thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all today. My name is Dr. Lisa Saladin. I'm the Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs and Provost at the Medical University of South Carolina. Physical address of my employer, who I'm speaking on behalf of today, is 171 Ashley Avenue. I think many of you are surprised that we are here. It is my understanding that it is an unprecedented event for us to actually publicly support an external developer in the peninsula. But we would also suggest that these are unprecedented times. I've been at the Medical University for 33 years. And in my history, I've never seen such a critical need for affordable housing for our students, our residents, and our workforce. Lack of affordable housing is the #1 reason students are denying and rejecting our offers for them to be accepted at the Medical University of South Carolina. We want to attract the best students in-state primarily, and we're losing them to other places. When students learn here, they tend to want to live here and work here, and we're losing those students. The rent of many of our students has gone up 100% or 200% in the last couple of years with minimal notice. That impacts the amount of student loans that our students are taking. Our students, many of them are graduating with over $100,000 in student loans already. And I'm not just talking about medical students. We have 3,300 students. The medical students are only 300 of those. I have many students who are going to graduate and not make more than $100,000 to start with, and they're going to be saddled with loans over $100,000. We also have residents, 900 residents. We're the largest medical resident supplier in the state of South Carolina. The salary of residents is around $60,000. They're going to be a resident for 4 and 5 years. They're often married. Some of them might have small children already. They're finished medical school, and they need affordable housing. And I want to also emphasize that we are not an undergraduate campus. Out of our 3,300 students, only about 300 are at undergraduate, and they're all online. So our students are all graduate students, adult students, mature students who are engaged in professional doctorate training. It's also lack of affordable housing that is stopping us from recruiting the best and brightest scientists, nurses, therapists, and educators. They cite the same issue. Affordable housing is not attainable, and they would prefer to go someplace else where they can get more affordable housing. Conceptually, we support attempts to increase affordable housing anywhere on the peninsula. But this project is right in the middle of our campus, and that makes it even more critical for us. They can walk across the street. They're on call. The library is right across the street. They won't need cars, which will also help reduce student loans. So this particular project is probably one of the most critical for us as far as supporting it, which is the reason that we are here today to speak to you in support of this project. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Appreciate your comment too. Anyone else like to speak in favor of the application? You know, the young lady said an important thing, that when people come to Charleston, they go to school there, and I don't think anybody leaves. I told Mayor Tecklenburg one time, and I said it jokingly, but I think it's true. I think I had an answer for the city. Pass a law. If anybody graduates from the College of Charleston or the Citadel or the Charleston School of Law or Medical University, if they graduate, they gotta leave for 3 years. Nobody leaves, and they all bring their families. But anyway, no one else like to speak in favor of the application? If not, anyone like to speak in opposition? No one in opposition? If you don't have any rebuttal questions or any final comments or no? Great, thank you. That'll close the public aspect of this. Commission members, Ms. Harrison,
So it's interesting that this application is before us today, because literally 3 days ago, I was on a message string, and it was a request for help. And it was about a fellowship person who's coming from Australia with 2 kids because they could not find housing. And so that was not only the first time, but the second time that kind of request has been circulated. And in our discussions, we all sit back and we talk about how we're all homeowners and how great it is. But at the same time, if you're not a homeowner, if you're a renter, the pressure is on to find housing close to your work. It is one thing to be able to walk across the street to your office. It is another thing to drive all the way from Somerville at 6 a.m. to downtown Charleston. And then
And have to
do
find a place to park and everything.
find a place to park and do that all over again by the time you get home. At around 5 o'clock. Right. And so essentially, by the time you get home, you're ready to go. You got to do it all over again. So, and what I also want to talk to relay is the fact that I remember there was some great consternation about this micro unit ordinance last year. And this is one of those times that we get to see an actual ordinance being utilized by more than just one specific person, that we don't design ordinances out of the whole cloth for specifics, for specific developments. And these kind of archetypes happen, and then they can be repurposed and repackaged and reused. And I think that's the benefit of engaging others in trying to find solutions to something that we've all discussed for an extended amount of time, which is lack of affordable housing, lack of mixed use affordable housing, and the utilization of price points that fit everybody's budget, especially in downtown. So I say all that to say that I think there is a compelling reason potentially to, and I'll make this a motion to approve this rezoning request.
Right.
I will second that, and I would also like to add, because I'm an alumni graduate, not a graduate, but employed at the Medical University for 38 years. I actually lived in some housing around the area before it got consumed into offices and other things. So I saw all the time with our residents coming in, our graduate students coming in, the difficulties of where to house people, and not just housing it. You're moving almost 30,000 people in and out of that campus every day with traffic. So if you eliminate any percentage of that, it would be wonderful. There used to be a bookstore, and Mr. Bailey here just whispered in my ear, why doesn't a campus zoning or consideration include housing? Because that just seems practical. So I would second this motion.
Great. Other comments? Bailey?
Well, I think that's something we ought to explore. I mean, I'm sorry, ma'am, I've already forgotten your name, but the representative of MUSC makes a great point. I mean, who needs spot for affordable housing more than our college campuses? But I just want to, I'm in favor too, but I wanted to ask Christopher, it sounded like you really kind of wanted to recommend approval.
Not on the spot.
I mean,
It's a
are you just conflicted because
It's
of
a conflicting situation because again, we designed this campus designation to help protect the medical district and all, and yet the medical district would like to see this housing here. So it's like, so, yeah.
Is there any other reason
Is there any other reason?
for recommending disapproval?
Just the comprehensive plan?
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's,
Okay.
we're trying to be consistent with our comprehensive plan. Yes, sir.
And just to his point, I lived in housing that was actually in this district before it got consumed into offices years ago when I was young and working on campus. So there was housing within the campus originally.
Mr. Lassane?
Did you want to finish?
No, I'm
Well, I would just say, for the record, and to address the same question that Mr. Bailey had, and that is that, the comp plan recognizes affordable housing as one of the biggest challenges that the city has right now. I know I've actually had conversations with the president of the Medical University, Dr. David Cole, about this issue. He is very personally, of all the things that MUSC has to deal with, this is the biggest issue that he's identified to bring up with other business leaders around the city. And so I think that there is no conflict with the comp plan. I actually think this is, when I first saw this, I thought, oh, this is great, and then I saw the disapproval in it and I was like, anyway, so just for the record, I think this is fully consistent with the comp plan. And, I think the fact that the developer is going to actually build the workforce units on site and is not going to do the fee in lieu is another reason. So I want to support it as well.
Great. Anyone else? Great. If not, there's a motion by Ms. Harrison, second by Ms. Jacobs in favor of this application. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone in opposition? So that's 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Gal. Next item on the agenda, rezoning, is number 2, 474 Meeting Street, Peninsula, TMS number 459 0503 071 0.15 acres. As rezoning for a portion of the property from 2.5 to 3 Old City Height District to 3.5 Old City Height District. Mr. Morgan.
Here we go. Okay, and so yes, 474 Meeting Street. This is a request for a fairly minor height change in this location. Just to orient you all to the property, this is Meeting Street running roughly north and south. Line Street is just a little bit further to the north here. Here's Columbus Street here. And the Star Gospel Mission is in this location here. In fact, it's where this height change is requested. Nassau Street and the east side is over here. And you see the general business zoning that fronts on Meeting Street and includes some of these parcels over to Nassau, and then the DR2F that's in the area. And the fact that there is a 4-story allowance along Meeting Street for 100 or so feet back. And then it's 2.5 to 3 in this area to the rear. And this area that is crosshatched is where the request is for the change from the 2.5, 3 to the 3.5. Go to in our comprehensive plan, it's in our neighborhood designated area. And it's immediately adjacent to the city center area that fronts on Meeting Street. And it's a request from 2.5 to 2.5, 3 stories to 3.5 stories. It's the next step up as our ordinance allows for a request to come forward through. Aerial image of the Star Gospel Mission property here. Some vacant land that they own that fronts of Nassau Street and some of the surrounding buildings and parking areas that front towards Meeting Street. And here's just a street view of the Star Gospel Mission structure at present. And our staff recommendation on this is approved.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. The applicant here. Mr. Gal.
You have some additional slides, right, Mr.
Yes.
Morgan? Richard Gow, LS3 205.5. I'm just gonna make an introduction and then this is a different part of town, different group of folks. This is for a nonprofit. And it's interesting when you look across the street. There's developments, and a lot of those little buildings in the middle of the blocks are 3.5 in a 2.5, 3.5 district. So we believe in this idea, but I'm going to let Dr. Platt, who's with me, board member David Engel, developers, and because it's a nonprofit, we have fundraisers here. There's a lot, riding on this, so we look forward to it.
Thank you, Mr. Gal. Good evening to everyone, neighbors, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Dr. Marion Platt, and I am the Executive Director of Star Gospel Mission. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening and to do what I do in my hometown. Just want to mention a little bit about Star Gospel Mission. It is Charleston's oldest independent faith-based charity and one of the oldest gospel rescue missions in the United States. Star Gospel was founded in 1904, and this year we will celebrate our 120th anniversary of serving people in our beautiful holy city. For over a century, the mission has practiced a service orientation towards men, women, and children in distress. Our founder saw it as his calling from God to provide stability and hope to those existing at the margins of our society. And since those formative days, Star Gospel Mission has always been located on the east side of the Charleston Peninsula. To this day,
The mission has outlasted the Iron Forge, the cigar factory, the Meeting Street, Piggly Wiggly, and other institutions. And it's our intention to continue serving Charleston from our base of operations situated between Meeting, Nassau, Columbus, and Line Streets. Now, as you probably know, over 300 people in our area sleep out under the stars every night in the Charleston area, whether that's a mild April evening or a cold, cool night like this one will be. And those of us on the front lines know that homelessness robs its victims of more than just a place to live. Homelessness, it takes away dignity. It divides people from their families and their communities of support. It destroys their health. It disrupts their sobriety. It completely destabilizes a person's prospects for thriving. Star Gospel Mission's model involves working together with the client to make sure that they are restored everything that homelessness has taken away. So when a person walks through our doors and becomes a guest of the mission, we interview them to make sure that they're a good fit for the program. Then we immediately provide them with meals, safety, community, casework, accountability towards their self-identified goals. And after that, we move them towards, transitional housing. They get some traction there and they engage in the next steps of the program. They start preparing for housing solutions. So as we're building more affordable housing on the peninsula and in Charleston, this is going to be important for the people who are interested in coming out of homelessness. And so we start requiring things like having a checkings and savings account, preparing themselves for handling a lease and paying their own utilities, repairing their credit and paying off old debts. And we even inspect the area that they live in to make sure that part of their model, part of their recovery from homelessness is taking care of the space that they live in. And so when my staff has served them well, we help them to reorientate into the physical community, and the mission remains a key part of their supportive spiritual network. We help them navigate the big world that almost broke them before they came to Star Gospel Mission in the first place. And one measure of success for Star Gospel Mission is also a limiting factor. And this is what I mean by that. We maintain a waiting list every day. As a matter of fact, just before leaving the mission to come over here to visit with you, I had to put several souls on a standby list. And that's why we're working with Evening Post, East Side Community, all interested parties to increase the density of our program and eliminate that standby list as much as we're able to do so. And when I think of success in our program, I think of a man named Mark. When I first met Mark, he had walked into the mission with nothing but the clothes on his back. He'd been living under the Ravenel Bridge at Meeting Street. And one day he returned to his sleeping space and to find that his items had been bulldozed and placed in a dumpster to be discarded. This included everything that he owned, up to and including his vital documents. That day he decided that he no longer wanted to just survive, but he wanted to thrive. And he found himself at the mission, seeking our assistance, seeking our help. It took him about a year to get a good job, kick off old habits, to get a bicycle, a moped, and then a small car. And today, Mark is a valued employee at Henry's on Market Street. He lives in his own apartment downtown, incidentally, on Nassau Street. And so I got a picture here, but I want to say that's not Mark. Just in case Mark is looking, Mark, you're much more handsome than this guy. But the point is that we're working together to increase the impact of a tried and true approach that's been modeled for 120 years right here on the peninsula. And everyone in this room knows that more solutions are needed to care for this population of people who live at the margins of society. And organizations like mine that are on the front lines of this work, we are weary. We are weary turning people away when we could provide more. So I hope you will consider our proposal to increase our density. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you guys. Thank you.
And sir, thank you for the good work that you do in the community.
Yes, sir. You got it.
Great. That's great.
So as just a little bit of a reminder, last month, y'all approved the Courier Square 3, where a lot of the workforce housing required for that parcel would be put onto this. So part of the genesis for this project is to create the density that would allow this particular transaction to happen. So this is the site in with the orange or the yellow on it, please. Next slide. And you can see it's in this interesting spot between the 2.5, 3, and 4-story district. Notice there's no 3.5-story district that runs between the two districts. So we're taking the opportunity to fit and actually create that bridge with this 3.5-story. Next slide, please. And so this is the site. Continue. And this is the what we're asking for. You can see the 4-story line is right there. We're basically adding right up against the 3.5 with the 2.5, 3 to the east. Seems practical. It's far away from Nassau Street. Next slide. The process that we went through here was to develop this plan, get Star Gospel, their board on top of it. They work with Post and Courier, with the developers. We've been to the city. We've been to the east side. They're very supportive. Preservation groups are very supportive. So I'm just going to kind of click through these quickly. But the general idea is to keep the buildings that we add as small as possible as they face Nassau, and use this one little opportunity many feet away from Nassau to add a little density. And notice how many trees are around this particular part of the property, like a lot of blocks in our town. You have all the big trees in the center, and so this is a great location for this. Next slide, please. And you can see as you go up the building, the gentlemen who are here will move from the lodge to a different type of housing, and then they'll actually apartments. So within this one little campus, there's this whole opportunity for folks to graduate from just getting there to being ready to leave. And it's just a great story and a testament to what they do. Next slide. So again, we're going to go to the next floor, and this is the slide. So what we're doing with the 3.5-story, we're not going to actually build a building that's 3.5 stories. We're going to take a 4th floor and make the footprint of it 1/2 of the size of the floor below it. And so it's just an opportunity to create something at the end of the campus and add the density that we can in this nice spot that's easy to hide. Next slide, please. So there you have it, the proposed buildings, the existing buildings, where we're asking for it. Next slide. When we talk to the group, so this is kind of just a quick little sketch of how you hide a big building in the middle of the block and leave the smaller buildings closer to the neighborhood. Next slide. When we spoke to one of the preservation groups, they wanted to see exactly how we were going to do this. So we promised to do a sectional drawing of the block with Nassau to the right, meeting to the left. You could flip through these, Christopher, just so that's an existing building versus a new building, a building in the center that we intend to build. This is a 3-story building, the 3.5-story building in the center of the block, and what the sight lines might be. Go to the next slide. This is the sight line from Nassau, and then the sight line from Meeting is equally as flat. Usually when you see those lines getting to 45 degrees, you get worried. They're really down there in the 20s, 20 degrees above plane. Next slide, please. So, and this is just a little progression. This is what the site looks like today. Next slide. This is what the buildings closer to the street might look like. This is the building in the distance. Add the addition on the top, you can barely see it. And then when we build the larger structure in the center, next slide, next 2 slides. I know you think you're going backwards, but I put extra slides in there for that extra. And so the idea is that another missing middle building can fit in a neighborhood in a nice, a classical way, feel fit with a whole lot behind it that nobody knows is there, doing great deeds. So we hope y'all can support that, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gao. Anyone else like to speak or speak? Mr. Engel, come on up.
Thank you for a second. Thank you. I'm David Engel. I'm chairman of the Star Gospel Mission. And I just want to say thanks for the city for their approval. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to this. Star Gospel Mission is a big thing in Charleston. You know, I'm a Charleston guy, and it just warms my heart to be part of it. Organization, being able to work with the Evening Post, be able to address affordable housing, all the issues that are confronting Charleston seem to be in the what's happening at Star Gospel Mission. So we see a resolution here to take 98 people off the street of Charleston. give them a place to live, give them an opportunity to get a job, work. And so I think it's important. I just want to say thank you to the city. Thank you to you all for listening. And it's impossible to say no to Marion Platt. He's the real deal.
How many years you been involved with Starbucks?
Gosh, since Doug Donahue days.
Oh, good.
When he was
Been
in
a
the
long
newspaper.
time. So
Yeah.
thank you
I've
for
been
your
on the
work.
board for 10, been chairman for 3.
Good for
and
you.
I'm gonna see this through. We're gonna
No,
get
good
this
for you.
stuff
Thank you
done.
for your work.
I appreciate
And
it.
as far
Thank
as
you
I'm
very
concerned,
much.
I see these Star Gospel missions like the accommodations business. They really are an accommodation.
Kind of, sort of, but it goes a little deeper.
Yep, no question.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Needed accommodations. Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Would anyone like to speak in favor of the application? If not, anyone in opposition? Any concerns? Any final comments? We're good?
I like the sound of that.
Thank you, Jeff. That'll close the public aspect. Commission members, questions, comments, motion?
Well, you know, they do say, ask and you shall be answered, so. Seeking you shall find, so to whom much is given, much will be required, so, I think a half foot, half story might be, is generous, so, I'm gonna move for approval.
Okay, great. Ms. Harrison, yes, sir.
I'll second.
Mr. Swain, so there's a motion by Ms. Harris, second by Mr. Swain. Any other questions, comments?
I'd like to say to Dr. Platt, it's great having you with us. I understand you were trying to be with us last time via video and it didn't quite work out, Mr. Harper. But I'm glad you're here and pleased, you know, bringing this forward.
Thank you. Thank you for your work again. So, again, Ms. Harrison makes a motion, second by Mr. Swain. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for your work again. Thank you all. Next item on the agenda is plan unit development budget amendment. Ben McConnell, number 1 is Ben McConnell Parkway, Essex Farms, PUD amendment. West Ashley TMS number 309-000000003. I have too many. Approximately 286.18 acres. Press amendment to the Essex Farm Plan Unit Development Master Plan Development Guidelines to allow a drive-through window for restaurants and commercial establishments as conditional use in the Essex Farms Limited Business District. Mr. Morgan?
Yes, so this is one of our older PUDs in the city. I think it was first approved in the 80s or early 90s. And it dealt with areas that were around some of the St. Francis campus area, as well as over into the areas that have become part of Carolina Bay, Essex Farms, Carolina Bay, all that area. And has led to a good bit of development that has happened out there. Some of the portions of the PUD are still undeveloped, including the area that is subject to this amendment. And it's a fairly simple amendment to essentially create a text amendment to allow drive-through window for restaurants or commercial establishments as a conditional use, and we'll go over the conditions. This is where the amendment would be subject to being in place. The site is fronting on Glen McConnell Parkway. It's at the corner of Essex Farms Drive. There is an assisted living facility that's here. And then there are residential uses in the Carolina Bay, Essex Farms development here. Providence Commons is across the street, across Glen McConnell here. The West Ashley Park portion of it is over here. And then there are some apartments to the west in this location here. In our comprehensive plan, this is our low impact and conserved area. It ultimately is going to have some impact from tidal encroachment, but most of this PUD is part of that. We didn't really see this amendment as being something that was going to make or break this development or this area from the standpoint of that low impact and conserved, because the commercial uses are still allowed here. This is just a way to give them a little bit more flexibility. The amendment is the next slide, I believe, yes. And so essentially everything that's in red is what the amendment would allow for. It says restaurants or commercial establishments with drive-through window, as long as following conditions are met, that's it's a conditional use. They would have they would be restricted to operating between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. They would have to provide a screen or landscape buffer of drive-through stacking and window buffer of the window from the public right of way. And they would be limited to the area defined on the Exhibit A. And that is Exhibit A, which is the crosshatched area, which this is just another map image of that I showed you earlier. And that is a pretty simple amendment in our view. And our staff is recommending for approval of this request. Here's an aerial of a street view image of the area of the PUD that would be subject to this amendment. And we were recommending for approval of this.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Is the applicant here? Come on up, tell us.
Hi, I'm Chico with HLA. Can you guys go?
Yeah, you are, yes.
Okay, 29 Mineblock Drive, Charleston, South Carolina. Really not much to say, just kind of here to answer any questions that you might have. It's a simple PUD amendment to drive-throughs like everything Christopher brought up. I think, over the time that was done, drive-throughs kind of looked down upon, but I think nowadays most people don't want to get out of their cars. I do think it's a nice benefit, and we'll be providing additional screening of a drive-through for this PUD amendment.
Great.
We're here. Any questions?
Great, thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Would anyone like to speak in favor of the application? Anyone in opposition to the application? Come on up, sir. Tell us who you are, where you live.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. My
Yes,
name is
sir.
Robert Tracy. I live directly across the street from where this development is planned. In Essex Farms, in the row of houses that are on the backside of our homes are on the marsh that's across from St. Francis, Lowe's and St. Francis. That's the back of our house. The front of our houses, my neighbors and I, is Essex Farms Drive, which is the entrance and exit for the entire Carolina Bay subdivision, getting out onto Glen McConnell and heading into downtown or North Charleston. So every morning, my neighbors and I are faced with a flood of cars leaving, and every evening a flood of cars coming in. We've struggled to try to get speed bumps in front of our houses because the police department came and did a study and certified that, in fact, a high percentage of cars exceed the speed limit running that stretch in and out, because it's a straight line. Once you make it past, when you turn into Essex Farms, there's an awkward dog leg that is a particular concern with this proposal. When you turn in, you immediately, as you get past the Essex Farms sign, have to go to the left, an entire lane essentially. And they're proposing in the development, from the way I can see the pictures, I don't understand why they didn't make a presentation here today, but the drive-through is going to pour out dump traffic out right at the entrance where traffic is already coming in and out in excess. And driving too fast. So we have multiple issues. These houses are end of life houses. I speak for myself, most of my neighbors, these are our substantial investments, our final homes. We're concerned about the effect that it's going to have on our property value. We understand that this is zoned for commercial development of some sort. I think we all, when we bought these houses, assumed that these were going to be doctor's offices, something that had a low traffic in it. I understand you referenced environmental impact, but the traffic impact is what we're really concerned about. Sky Drive is going to be extended behind this property, and I understand there's going to be an entrance and an exit on the next street up Glen McConnell. But that is really personally is not of concern to me, and I understand that maybe there was going to be an Aldi's grocery store considered. We've heard rumors of different kinds of things. The red flag came up from social media and texting with my neighbors when we saw, because someone happened to see the posting, the pink notice was folded over for this hearing. Somebody walking their dog happened to turn it over. Oh, there's a public notice. And the drive-through just sent, waves of concern through this group of 10 homes. because it's something much more serious than simply a business being put somewhere in the woods that is a buffer between our front porches and Glen McConnell. So if you can imagine, you have a beautiful home that you've invested a lot of money in, and your front porch now is looking at woods, and our neighbors across the street who are neighbors just like us, the people who live in the assisted living facility and walk their dogs and walk around the block. They are as much concerned as our children. We have, I think, 6 to 8 toddlers in these houses. So I'm interested to hear from the developer about how they conceive that the entrance they've drawn. I was sneaking a peek at it before I stood up here. It doesn't make any sense to me how traffic can go in and out of that right in the dog leg and not create a huge traffic problem every morning and every evening. So I appreciate your time. I think I've probably spoken too long, but these are serious concerns. We didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare. I know that several of my other neighbors want to speak probably about the same types of concerns.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming too. Come on up. If you'd like to speak, come on up and tell us your name and address.
All right, y'all. My name is Steve Schwade. I'm actually Robert's next door neighbor. I live at 1926 Essex Farmers Drive. I understand this commercial use. When I bought the property, I knew that. The master plan, though, initially, my understanding is that includes drive-through aspect. And I'm not an engineer, nor do I know how the multipliers work. But if a building is set for X amount of people, if it's a drive up, park your car, get out, you throw a drive-through aspect in that sets the multiplier up. I couldn't even think how substantially. I drive by the entrance of the Harris Teeter is off Beast Ferry. There's that Starbucks that goes into Grand Oaks. That is a disaster. People can't get in, people can't get out. I think of every Chick-fil-A type establishment. If it is a drive-through pharmacy, that's one thing. But if it ends up being a Sonic or another Chick-fil-A or another Starbucks or something you see lining 17, you can't even get in those parking lots, traffic backs up. The only thing I've seen for access is going to be all right here. People can't get in and out of here as it is at this point in time. Traffic backs up all the way down. So I don't necessarily, I'm not against the drive-through aspect of what could the drive-through possibly be. If it's a grocery store with a small pharmacy window, that's one thing. But you think of a McDonald's across the street from your house, that's pouring out, pouring in. That's taking something that could hold 100 cars and making it possibly 200-300 cars, increasing that volume that goes in and out, thus making traffic worse, thus making accidents worse, thus making it unsafer to live there. That's my biggest grievance. And the way the sign was, I don't know how this gets put up and who is the one who places these signs. I have a picture on my phone. This sign was a foot off the ground, folded over at the entrance where you can't even park your car to look at it. Found this out 2 days ago, so I can't do any homework, do any research. And as a taxpayer in the city, I find that to be kind of a letdown because it doesn't give you your civic ability to speak on your behalf and do that research. So
I agree with you.
I don't know how that was done, but that should be looked at in the future.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming. Yes, sir. Come on up.
My name is Stephen Shook, neighbors of these two gentlemen. I'm at 1938 Essex Farms Drive. We're all 9 houses on Essex Farm Drive right here. This area where from Rutherford, everybody comes out of Essex Farms Drive here. The traffic is often backed up back to here first thing in the morning and in the evening. It's a very tight area. There's also a Y-shaped intersection right there as you enter the road. This area just simply can't handle having a Sky Drive, the proposed road, I'm sorry, is right here. There's another entrance down here. If they are gonna do anything, I understand it's commercial property. We can't do anything about that, but I can't see any way where our street can support that without having a connecting drive connecting down to here before they proceed with the property. They might even have to have, you know, in this way and out that way, something like that. But to have traffic, particularly in the morning, as well as people trying to get in and out, it would just be a traffic jam every day, so.
I hear you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Anyone else like to speak in opposition? Not would the applicant like to respond or hopefully give us some answers, maybe used to some of the concerns that were brought up?
Yes.
And let me ask you a question. Have y'all met with some of these folks?
Yes, we
No,
have. We've
not
met.
one. I believe there's,
I'm asking them a question.
I'm sorry.
We met with Councilmember Kevin as well. and Mr.
Okay.
Keeley.
You're willing to meet with them additionally as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I believe what I'm about to say here shortly should address a good amount of your concerns. So I do apologize. It's hard to follow the first two presentations. Those are very well done that we just had here. If you can see what we're proposing here.
Can you turn that to us, please?
How about this?
If you could bring it a little closer, my eyes on it to some of these folks.
Here, I'll hold it, you talk to me.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
All right, so we've been working on this property for about a year, and first and foremost, ownership has deed restricted the corner, which is the closest to the residents that are here, to not allowing a fast food with a drive-through. The only allowable use that would have a drive-through and what we hope to bring is a bank on that corner piece and then a shop.
If you
space.
speak to us, I appreciate it. Thank you.
And so what that deed restriction is in ownership's legal writing. We are not able to close on the property and develop a drive-through of a QSR on that particular corner piece.
QSR meaning what?
Quick service restaurant,
Okay,
fast food with
thank
a
you.
drive-through. And the reason I mention that is when we put this PUD amendment in place, we were not subdivided, so the whole entire property had to have that language associated with it.
Yes, sir.
But we are not allowed to close on the property and develop a fast food restaurant anywhere near this. It actually covers this entire half of the property. So this amendment is for a proposed 1 acre subdivision right here that would allow a drive-through. And all of this is in conceptual planning still. We went to the city last week in TRC and we had our first round of comments. But where we are is the Sky Road has to get amended. There's traffic studies. There's a stoplight that's being built right now. I believe it's going to be operational in a few weeks based off the Glen McConnell expansion. And all of these things have to meet code, meet requirements with the city of Charleston, with DOT, with county, because this is a county DOT highway. Essex Farms is a city of Charleston maintained road. Sky Road is currently private, but being dedicated to the city of Charleston. And the extension of Sky Road to Dorothy Rhodes Way would also be. I think a lot of those things in nature right now are very conceptual based on where we are in the first round of our civil plan submittal. But from a drive-through traffic concern, everything we're gonna do is gonna be, to code, to what is necessary. And again, that 1 acre corner piece will not be a coffee drive-through or something that's a high traffic generator. And then addressing the overall traffic concerns, this highway expansion, Glen McConnell improvement project with the stoplight, we believe.
Mr. Bailey, you had a question?
Yeah, so I don't really understand where we fit in the sequence of events in terms of this apparent deed restriction. I don't know if that's already in place or we're being asked just to go on faith that it's gonna happen. That's one issue, but I guess I just want to make sure what the applicant is acknowledging based on the apparent desire to place that deed restriction. Is that a quick service restaurant or a store? Well, I guess a Starbucks is a quick service. That those things do create more traffic and would be a problem for these folks. Is that what you're saying?
We have not looked into, from a traffic study perspective, what that would do because we are.
Why are
legally
you putting the deed restriction on it then?
It's already deed restricted per the current ownership, Essex Farms LLC. We, Cameron Property Company, are just under contract on the property.
So the deed restriction's already in place.
Yes,
It's not prospective. It's
Mhm.
okay.
It's already here to this.
Any other questions?
So I did have, I just want to make sure, this says 286.188. This site is the 280.
original PUD.
That was the size of the original PUD.
Okay,
Subsequently subdivided. I'm not sure what the acreage, can you tell us what the acreage is on the kind of L shape?
We're right at 13 acres,
okay,
That
so-
includes going.
and this includes the stormwater.
right, so this is where Sky Road is, that? this is-
Yes, ma'am.
And that's a private road, I believe.
Private road.
Correct. It's not a
Correct.
public right of way.
And Sky Roads is to be dedicated. Right now, the previous senior living development, they're having to fix a few things before it becomes dedicated to the city, but that's been an ongoing. Again, there's definitely a lot of moving parts. I understand that, and trying to bundle that all in right now is a little complex, but this particular language is just to address, the users and the businesses that want to go and that desired piece. That's why we're bringing.
Mr. Morgan, where would this go? What other avenues would this go? If we would approve this, where would this go?
So this is more or less a text amendment, this PUD,
Okay.
and it would go on to city council, assuming you all make a recommendation on it tonight. It would go on to city council in the February, the fourth Tuesday in February. And then assuming city council endorsed it, then the regular process that we have for developments like this, the TRC process, as well as the design review
So
board.
a
would
ton more
review all
meetings,
these.
a lot more
Absolutely.
meetings, a lot
Design
more
review board
information.
will look at all
Lot
of
more-
these, absolutely.
Okay.
I do have one
Yes,
question, and maybe Lee can answer this one. So because we're adding this text amendment to a PUD, because I always understood the PUD to be basically an ordinance that governs the entire parcel itself. Because the text, we're adding this text, is it the presumption that because the text is silent on the issue of drive-throughs, that they're prohibited? I guess what is the driving factor behind that?
Well, at present, they can't put a drive-through in this location. So by virtue of this amendment, they could put a drive-through if it meets the conditions that are outlined in this amendment.
Can you put the conditions back?
Sure.
Right, I think that I was trying to figure out, is because it was
Yeah.
silent, they
The
couldn't do
Conditions
it.
are in red. So it's restaurants or commercial establishments with drive-through as long as the following restricted operating only between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. Provide a screen or landscape buffer of the drive-through stacking the window from a public right of way. And they're limited to the area defined as Exhibit A. And Exhibit A is this image here, it's the same L shape.
Partially limited to that one side.
It's
Can
like-
you not have
Any other
drive-throughs in
questions,
limited
commission members?
business?
I'm sorry,
Sorry.
several things at one time, but.
I think if I read that, the PUD has like a limited business zoning on it, and you can't have drive-throughs in limited business.
Correct.
Okay, I would.
Yeah.
Okay, that's,
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
The PUD at present doesn't, because of it's based on limited business
Okay.
locations, it
Okay.
doesn't allow for drive-throughs, so this
Okay.
would allow.
okay,
Based
that's
on
what I
those
was,
conditions.
Other questions, comments, commission members? Not. Well, we'll close the public aspect, but ma'am, tell me what you're interested in.
In this, I live at 1938 Essex Farms Drive.
Okay, we kind of closed that out, but I'll hear you. If
One
you
more comment that hasn't been addressed.
tell us your name again for the record.
Marcia Shook, S-H-O-O-K, 1938 Essex Farms Drive. Right across the street from me directly, it's Harmony, which is an older folks home.
Right.
Daily, every day, we have fire trucks come by for the folks. Ambulances, police carts to this home every day. So that's gonna also increase on the driving in the area and stuff like that.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Thank you all. If you have anything else, I don't want to cut you off. Mr. Lasine, you have a question?
Is there anything to preclude more than one QSR drive-through?
I believe based on the way that, since it has not been subdivided is why, that would have been my goal when we proposed this, but because we are still in one large parcel, we're not able to, but we're happy to disclose the deed restrictions if that would be necessary, and I believe they'll come up at city council, and it is, there's nothing that legally we could ever do to change that. So it, I guess the only difference, and this is a proposed gas station that
you know, we waited for last week before we have everything signed up, and we would like to start talking about the actual users that are gonna be coming here, but, you know, the gas station is permitted by right in this particular zoning, and so, you know, they've deemed that being an area that they wanna go, and so it's just this 1 acre parcel that, in my opinion, whatever.
Okay, any other questions to the applicant? If not, thank you all. And again, just to reiterate, you willing to meet with these folks again? Make sure we answer all the questions they have. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
You heard it, so I'm holding to that, so thank you. Gotta close the public aspect, Mr. Bailey. You looked at me, I thought you were gonna speak, so I don't want to.
Do my colleagues, are my colleagues comfortable that deed restriction is sufficient to prevent the quick service restaurant on that corner? Because I mean, I think about, when I think about Savannah Highway, think about driving down Savannah Highway, and there are lots of businesses, all different types. I'm sure most of them would be permitted here. And there are 2 places where it's a nightmare. Starbucks,
No.
3 places,
3 places.
Starbucks, Krispy Kreme, and Chick-fil-A. And so I think that the concerns that these folks have expressed about a drive-through across the street from their house are very valid. But I think I could also be comfortable if we believe that deed restriction is gonna accomplish preventing that.
Ms. Jacobs?
Are we potentially seeing this right now because it's in the TRC process and TRC has recognized this problem?
I believe,
The road is going through concept plan right now.
yeah,
So just
the road itself.
Getting zoning in place.
So the TRC process would be
Last call.
confirming this deed restriction for this when they're.
Well, no, because the city's not a party to that deed
Right.
restriction.
Yeah.
Well, they would
That's
know
illegal.
about it in order when they give them a concept.
But that isn't something the city would enforce. That's something between the current owner and future owners. Yeah.
So I think,
But when the city, regardless of ownership, once the city started the TRC process, they would be aware of that deed restriction, wouldn't be permitting anything in a concept. plan for it.
Again, that's between the owners, you know, we only go with what's in the zoning. And so this is a
Harrison.
PUD amendment release. Now, if you all wanted to, and haven't mentioned this to the applicants, but if you wanted to further restrict the area that this amendment could apply to, you know, there might be a way to modify this drawing to maybe shorten the L or something like that, based on the areas that are part of the deed restriction. So that could be a condition that you all could place in this amendment.
so,
And we could get the meets and bounds from the applicants for the area of the deed restriction. And while we wouldn't be part of the deed restriction, you would just be shrinking the area that this
So we
drive-through
would be
amendment would
we
apply
would be
to.
limiting the zoning based on all the restrictions that's been mentioned is a possibility.
Well, we would
follow
we would limit the area that it applies.
The area that.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're writing the text.
That this new zoning
And
applies.
it looks like the applicants are nodding that that makes sense to them.
We were just, I think, under the impression legally we weren't able to present that as, but if that is approved by you guys.
And we are involved in the deed restriction on this, but you could back up the area that this would apply to, so you all would be conceding in the PUD that no drive-throughs would go into that parcel that fronts on Essex Farms.
But I thought that, well, let me just, I do need to ask one question, because I think there's a lot going on. The the parcel that's, what was the size of the first parcel that has all the parking spaces? What's the size of that one? That parcel,
This will be right under an acre.
okay. How many, okay,
She's talking.
This one, this is the one
that's
that
the one.
we would propose the change.
How many lots are you actually proposing? 1, 2, it looks like
Well, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5 lots,
Yeah.
okay. And this is retail and that's a bank. Would the bank in your mind would require a drive-through?
Well, the bank's already permanent in the PUD and LB with the drive-through. So there isn't any reason for the PUD amendment language for a financial institution. They're already permanent, all right, and LB.
And so commercial, what the other type of commercial product that would require a drive-through other than a quick service restaurant would be what?
you know, with a drive-through.
Dry cleaner.
Anything with a drive-through would
Yeah.
fall under that
Pharmacy.
category.
Okay.
Pharmacy, dry cleaning.
And for the record, more than happy to allow it to be that one area if that's a conditional.
And that one area is how far back from where the townhomes, that
This,
distance?
I do not know the distance off of, but if this is the entire, if you guys ever been to this area, this is where the actual Sky Road ends.
Okay,
And it's past it.
okay, gotcha, okay. So one thing I think, it would just, I think this application was. I think because we were only seeing it as text amendment rather than visually, with what they were presenting. That's where the conundrum is, because the visual is that supposedly this entire site was going to be a drive-through. And I think that is is something that, you know, all applicants have to think through is, what do you want people to understand about your project? 286 acres is going to be rezoned and provided for a drive-through. And that's how it reads, that's how it's set up. And so I think that's your conundrum right now that you're stuck in, is that little information, because you probably may have thought that that much was required, but visually people are big, we're all visual nowadays. So I think that's one thing with this application, which causes this consternation about, well, I don't want, nobody wants to visually look at a Starbucks, Chick-fil-A, quick service restaurant in front of there, but there are other types. But when you see the word drive-through, there's only one type of drive-through where people are to respond to. Also, the location of the specific one that you're looking for isn't actually meted out. I think the problem with us trying to write the amendment is that we don't even have that part in front of us, and it's not a part of the application.
I wouldn't feel comfortable.
So I can't write it. We can't give them the text amendment. And I think, and because, you know, understanding that they don't understand, we don't understand, I mean, we understand, but visually we're putting it together now, I think is the challenge. I think the only thing we can do is defer on this particular piece. Yeah, but I don't want to defer because, and I hate that.
Yeah, unless we have a meeting within 30 days, a deferral just goes to council with us blessing it, not making a decision.
Is that right, Mr. Moore?
Yes. That's right.
Now, if the applicant defers, that's.
Now, if the
different.
applicant wants to defer,
And I don't know what their time frame is on all this. If they could wait for another month.
I mean, what I'm
to further
personally worried
refine.
about is the PUD amendment language that you're stating is not able to be executed and written in stone because it's not subdivided, the property is not subdivided.
Well, no,
That was something
We
that the
pulled back
city,
from that, like the hatching, I mean.
yeah, that doesn't have to follow lot lines.
when we first approached it, that was the feedback we received, so I apologize if there was miscommunication.
Cause I think we would just need, you know, meets and bounds or, you know, acreage and a amended image.
I think we feel more
like we have
comfortable
right here showing
get some
the area.
clarification.
Did we
Why?
do that as a condition?
I think if the commission, if the planning commission is asking for that, you could condition this amendment with that.
Well.
but what are we conditioning it? Are we
Yeah,
conditioning it with that?
that's the problem. Like,
Basically,
well,
we still have
condition-
limits of, like, the red hatching that shows the area that can allow the drive-through to pull that back to just the area that would be shown.
But you have a number of feet or something like that, that you could give them so they have a confidence that as it goes forward, that, you know.
To have
Well, let's do.
That's what I was saying, like the text amendment could have been attached with that as an exhibit.
Mr. Lassane,
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, I think we're limited, we can, the applicant withdraws or,
Mr. Shealy is here.
the application.
Mr. Shealy is here. He can, I mean, when this gets to council, he will know whether or not what he's been handed is what
So,
we've discussed
I
tonight.
think we want to make sure that there's safeguards in place before we approve anything.
Yeah.
Would you like to say something?
Well, I was here to listen and hear their concerns, you know, tonight and, you know, so that I would fully understand what's happening. HLA is a great group and they've done a great job with this, but there's some miscommunication and we we need to pull them all together and, let everybody
And
have
I don't know-
a full knowledge of what's happening.
Thank you, Councilman. I don't know that we can do that tonight.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Bailey just asked me this question. If we vote to deny this request, it still goes to council denied and they can override it with a simple majority. With the potential of them giving them the information to correct it at council. So we could say, we're uncomfortable with this. And they could come to council with.
We can do that.
Since that recommendation.
That certainly is an option. Or the other option is that they withdraw the application or, that kind of thing.
I mean, but.
Or defer the
If they
application.
defer, if they defer, it has to come back to us in a minute. If we deny it now, it goes right straight to council and they can.
Yeah, but we,
That's what I'm saying. Council can fix it because it's just a simple majority of council to
well, but
override it.
I don't like
That's
to
an
pass the
option.
buck until we see
No, I'm just saying
something.
it's an
I hate to
option.
do that. I'd rather do it right from us. Come
No,
to
I
at least do
don't
something.
disagree with that. I'm just saying it's an
Yep.
option of timing
Okay.
for them.
So, commission members, comments, questions, motions?
I guess the question to the applicant is whether or not you'd be willing to defer your.
That's what we're discussing.
Okay. If you need a minute, that's okay.
I think the council member.
Yeah.
And like, how good to talk
Yeah.
about this other amendment.
Sir. Jackson.
Well, what's written is not at all what was presented, and what they presented answers a lot of their questions. And I also think these proposed roadways for additional ingress egress plays a big role in this, so everybody's not coming out on one street. So if this amendment was written based on what they showed on that display, I think we'd have already been done with this by now by approving it. So that's, I don't see how we approve the way it's, because it says 286 acres with drive-through windows for restaurants
Right.
and commercial establishments.
286 acres is the entire.
Correct.
Right.
That's why I say,
But this
the
only
way this
applies-
is written,
yeah.
Right.
it's not at all what we're seeing here with
I'm with
not
you.
only being drive-throughs in the development, but all to
So-
one side of the development, completely away from those who have a problem with it. So I think this is very workable. But
Thank
what
you.
we have on paper is not at
All
all.
right, I
what-
hear you, Mr. Jackson. I agree. Folks, you tell us where you stand before we make any motions.
So if we motion to defer with the idea that.
Great. Thank you.
We can come back.
I think that's a good answer, and I think everybody gets their heads together and comes back to us, and we can do it the right way to send it to the council with some recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming out for
Wait a
your
second,
time.
did
We
we
hear
actually
you.
vote on the motion?
Thank you, council member, for coming
No,
out.
no,
We're not deferring it.
Yeah.
For the record,
They have to
the
defer.
applicant has deferred.
That's correct. My applicant's requested. Okay, thank you all for coming. The next item on the agenda is ordinance amendment number 1 to amend section 54-241 Code of City of Charleston zoning ordinance to add penalties with intentional demolition of structures without required approval. Revised.
Okay.
One of these.
So this was before you all at your last meeting, and there was another amendment that was supposed to have been made to the ordinance that not get shown in your packages and carried on to city council. So it's essentially the same amendment, but it does have the aspect that, this is at the very end of it, this is the overall amendment here in the double underline. And the areas that have changed, that I believe you all may have discussed, but was not shown in writing, that it was inside your discussion, was that any licensed professionals who took part in unauthorized demolition would be subject to suspension or revocation of the business license pursuant to blah, blah, blah. In addition, the board shall have the discretion to deny any further approvals for the subject property for a period of up to 5 years. That was extended. So this is more in keeping with what city council was looking for, and that's really the change to it. Otherwise, it's already dealing exactly the way it was before with intentional demolitions of structures.
Right. Would anyone like to be heard on this? If not, that'll close the public. Unless some members
Does
request
the
comment.
applicant have any comments?
We would recommend.
Mr. Bailey recommends
Yeah,
approval. Mr. Bailey recommends approval. Is there a second by Mr. Lassane? No other comments, questions, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That's 7 in favor, none opposed. Next is zonings. And we've got two zonings. Number 4 is 2413, 2417, Savannah Highway, West Ashley, TMS number 3100-60000, block 3 and 04.32 acres from GB to R4. Well,
No, they're requesting general business on this location, and it was
R4 in the
from
county.
R4, is that correct? Was it not CC in Charleston County?
That's a big.
Yeah.
It was R4 in the county.
CC in Charleston County,
Yeah.
CC in Charleston County.
Oh, it was what in Charleston County?
CC, their
CC.
community commercial, and the GB is a pretty even comparison to that, and it also matches the commercial that's
Okay.
to the east of it.
Great. Would anyone like to be heard on this? If not, motion.
Move for approval.
Mr. Hussein, second by Ms. Jacobs, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's 7 in favor, none opposed. Last item on the agenda is number 6 under zonings. 1419 Riverfront Drive, West TMS number 352100000031.34 acres. And again, request zoning of single family SR1. Zoned R4 in the county.
Yes, sir. And yeah, it's an existing residence in this location. We have an image of it here.
Okay. I'm assuming no one would like to be heard. Is there a motion? Ms. Jacobs, Mr. Bailey? Motion by Ms. Jacobs, second by Mr. Bailey. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's 7 in favor, none opposed. Mr. Morgan, any staff updates?
Well, we are continuing to work on the peninsula plan, and the next round of public participation is gonna be in early February. It's gonna be, the dates are, I should have had this right in front of me. February 5th, 6th, and 7th. And more details will be coming out on that, but I believe there's gonna be a public meeting the evening of February 6th on that. And then our zoning ordinance folks are about to get our large package of city analysis of their original, what are we calling that, Philip, the code assessment. So the city staff has gone through the code assessment, which is a 200-page long document, and given them lots of comments, dozens of pages of comments. That's going back to the consultants. They're gonna refine that code assessment, and then in March, we should have public input before those March dates. We're gonna send that code assessment out to our subcommittees as well as you all, so you all can take a look at that. So that probably would be what, late February, something like that?
I think sooner than later,
Okay.
might be within a couple weeks.
Any other updates?
And that's everything I can think of at the moment.
And I make a commitment to you that Mr. Hussein, Mr. Bailey and I, in the past, we've talked about, we'll get together, hopefully in the next month over the phone, to talk about some procedural issues of the meetings. Ms. Jacobs brought up and some others talked about, to have some recommendations in next month's meeting. Ms. Jacobs?
Since we have just 1 minute, I wanted to share with you something I found since we just got an update about zoning code rewrite. I've been in the city archives recently. I'm looking for something very specific. Haven't found it yet, probably in somebody's attic somewhere. But I
Have you
did find-
corrected anything in the archive?
But I did find this
Want
interesting,
to.
I did find this interesting letter just randomly. It's dated November 14th, 1929. And it's written from the city engineer to AG Tuxbury Lumber Company. And I want to read you just a little bit of it because it says, replying to your inquiry of the 13th relative to possible or probable revision of building code, I beg to advise. A committee on city planning and zoning is at present considering the city's need of a zoning ordinance. This is 1929, this is our letter, but I am not advised if this will be include building construction requirements, because that's what the guy was looking for. And it gives reference to the chairman of this committee, who was Mr. Trott. And they thought that everything's gone onto a national board of fire underwriters. But this was the letter starting in 1929 when we were getting
There
ready
you
to
go.
write our zoning.
96-year-old ordinance that we're gonna be fixing. How about that?
So we're gonna be fixing this, but this is when the city was thinking about doing the very first.
I want to know if there are any other corrections you need to make to that. No, thank you, Ms. Jacobs.
I
Thank
just
you.
thought it was fun. I randomly ran across this and I went. oh.
Anything else, commission members? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
So moved. Thank you all for coming, and everybody have a good evening.
Stay warm.
Yeah, stay warm.
Come in here, sit down.
How about there?
It was dropping.
Sunday's supposed to be colder than that. I think it's supposed to be 17.
I was reading this article the other day about, about how people describe extreme cold, right? Like extreme cold is different in Minnesota. They're like, yeah, we say extreme when it's like -45. We're extreme, we drop down to 32.
Anything below 32 is like.
We're like extreme.
Get all those buildings next.
32.
Don't worry, not flipping, not flipping.
Come back to that.
Why do we have?
I
wrote my love letter explaining each one. I was ready for you to ask me, and I'm about to explain.
This is part of the picture, like,
Yeah. It's over there, I was wrapping it up during the meeting.
5662220.
Cold.
No kidding.
You are
I find that, I'll send it to you.
Because I'm sure
I know there's a wealth of information. It could be a swing and a miss.
That's what I was gonna say to you if you asked me why we're part. Well, I was going to, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, man, thank you.
Thank you.
because they're working on.
So I'm like, every day,
Be good.
every day I struggle. I had a year in front of me.
The last one is duplex, but he also has an accessory dwelling unit.
Well, I mean,
We're figuring out, that's more all.
I don't think anybody's using it.
Yeah.
Every now and then somebody does.
So none of them are
No.
disasters, but.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you all.